Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this Family Building Society podcast on later life lending. I am joined by Darren Deacon, Head of Intermediary Sales of Family Building Society, Edward Payne, Director of Clifton Mortgages, and Michael Craig, Managing Director at Brilliant Solutions. And we are going to be talking about the later life lending space and the importance of brokers and packages and the broker-lender relationship. So I suppose I'll go to Darren first and talk about how brokers are in informing your proposition in the later life lending side and what things you're looking for from brokers in later life lending applications.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. At Family Building Society, we are very much broker driven and focused on brokers. By far, the overwhelming majority, over 95%, probably higher, is business that's broker driven. So we very much are invested in advisors. So for ourselves, it's all about education. We've got a team of 9 BDMs, 8 of those out with boots on the ground, shall we say, and one recently we've recruited as a telephone BDM. So we've got full UK coverage. But going back to the education, it's having the BDMs to go out, speaking with the brokers, and informing them of the options that are available, because what we're discussing today, making the brokers aware of the alternative options. As I said earlier on, from going straight from high street lender and straight into some sort of lifetime equity release style mortgage. So very much we're invested in brokers. We want to understand what their business is. We want to add value to their business. We want to be able to help them in order to give that holistic view of the wider family if necessary, and see where we fit into that. So for us, it's very much, what is key is the educational piece, just getting that message out, and letting the advisor know what options are available, and then ultimately the next stage is, well, what do we actually need in order to get this application to us?
Going to Michael, obviously as a packager, you kind of help with more complex inquiries, I suppose, on the later life side. When would a broker come to a packager in a kind of later life lending scenario, or what kind of examples have you seen?
I think from our perspective, just to follow from what Darren's saying, it's about education. Brokers, for me, every broker, I believe, and I'm not saying that because I run a packager, should have a packager in the background supporting if they can't find a solution for that customer. Some brokers are going to find solutions for the majority of the customers, but a lot of brokers I talk to use us because they just simply can't find the outcome that client needs, whether that be later life lending or anything. The idea of not having a packager, whether that's us or one of the other packages that are out there, I believe you should have someone sat behind you that you can pick the phone up and talk to people. We deal with a lot of businesses that go from a one-man band to 50, 60, 100, 150 brokers. For me, conversation is key around these type of things. If you want to bounce an idea off someone, bounce off a specialist that deals with it day in, day out, whether that be a packager or be a colleague or a peer in the industry, have the conversation. The amount of conversations I have, following on from an email that I've had from a broker about a case, I'll pick the phone and say, actually, let's have a chat about it. Because you're giving me all this information in an email, which is great, but actually I'm going to find out a lot more by simply just talking to you. And then we can have conversation, we can bounce ideas off each other. When do I think a broker should come to a packager? As far as I'm concerned, just before you say no. Don't say no to a customer without getting a second opinion from someone. We're not saying that brokers can't do what they need to do to get the outcome for the customer. But as far as I'm concerned, the big strapline I say at our road shows and our roundtable events, and Darren's heard it, is don't say no to a customer until you've got a second opinion from a specialist in that arena, because we're helping them in the most important part of their journey in life, bar having children, which is building that family home or taking money from that family home to help the children, whatever it may be.
Ed, what do you think about the importance of the relationship between brokers and lenders?
We're introducers, we're vetted, we've got vested interests, we've got the same shared client at the end of the day, and I think there's a big responsibility on brokers to make sure that their information is accurate, provided timely, fully packaged up. But for me, the best relationships I have with lenders and those that I do most business with are those where I've got access to a BDM with knowledge in the industry that I can speak to and discuss the case up front, because sometimes it's more about perception and how you actually package something up and give the information to the lender. But also, good underwriters are a bit of a dying breed, I have to say. Family have got them, and there's named individuals you can go and speak to there, and there's other lenders that I could mention as well. Skipton, for example, NatWest, the underwriter will ring you and actually talk to you, but there's other lenders out there in the market that its computer says yes or no, and you cannot influence that decision. And a lot was made about robo-advice a few years ago, and ultimately, customers are complex, their needs are complex, everybody's lives are different. And we need to be able to have a conversation with the lender, work with the lender in order to find the best deal. You're not doing your customer a great service if you're just hitting Trigold or MBL or picking the best rate. You've got to go and find what's actually the best deal for that customer. And going back to Mike's point about packages, I use packages. I think everybody should use a packager. Normally, I tend to do it if there's an element of adverse. It's not really my bag. I don't tend to get involved with those customers in my client base. But don't turn the customer away. But this is the age of holistic advice. Now, I'm not saying we should all be going out and doing investment advice and all types of financial services, but when a customer comes to see us and there is clearly a need to talk to them about their will, you need to have a will specialist in place. If I'm talking to a client about joint borrower sole proprietor, you need to have an independent legal advice partner in place. You need to have a chartered tax planner in place. And all of these people need to be there. Now, I'm qualified to advise on lifetime mortgages. A lot of advisors aren't. So they need to have a trusted partner within that space. It's such a diverse demographic. You've got to have all of the tools available to you, and definitely working, with a good packager in areas that you are regularly working is key from my perspective.
Just to pick up on what you said about advisors being trained in lifetime mortgages, or kind of, it feeds into the whole education piece we've been talking about. Do you think there needs to be more of a education on lifetime mortgages, or a kind of more of a decision on, I will refer to a packager or I will refer to another kind of broker firm? In that sense, just kind of drilling down into later life lending specifically.
I think triaging customers is incredibly important, especially with an older client as well. Air have brought out a great tool where you can sit down, go through key questions with the customer, and actually show them the effects of taking one product over another, repayment versus servicing interest versus interest roll-up, how much they can borrow, and actually putting all of the options in front of customers. And I think a lot of that, that's really the essence of Consumer Duty. We need to be giving customers all of the options. Now, it's difficult to do that if you're not qualified to advise on all of the options available to them. And it can be a slightly disjointed process, but just because you can't advise on a particular area doesn't mean to say you can't have, a general discussion and then introduce them to trusted third parties who can help. I really got qualified in lifetime mortgages because I was starting to see a lot more joint borrower sole proprietor questions. And very often those were coming from grandparents who were looking at ways that they could help children onto the ladder. And inevitably, as well as looking at supporting the mortgage, they started looking at how can they give them additional deposit, or can they extract some of the value of their property? So equity release questions just became more and more common. And for me, I just felt that it was a big missing piece in terms of the conversation. But even now, I don't advise on home reversion plans. I I wouldn't do unless, something was absolutely pushed. But I do have a packager that I could take those cases to. Ultimately, there's only one or two providers in the marketplace anyway, and I don't think they're great value. But if it's the only option, Michael said, don't say no, have a look at what else is out there.
Mike, do you have anything to add to that, just in terms of later life lending? Do you think there needs to be a bit more of education, I suppose?
I'm a firm believer in you can never be too educated in anything that you do. You should always be learning something. My granddad used to tell me, if you don't learn something, whether that be business or personal, at least one thing a day, you've not had a successful day. Whether that be a fact, whether that be whatever it might be. So from my perspective, education is key. I think our industry is quite poor at it, to be honest. I'm not having a go. I feel like I'm having a go at the industry a lot today, but I think it's very poor at the educational side. For me, Ed's spot on with third-party referrals. We as a business, we can't advise on wills, we can't advise on investment pensions, but we had trusted third parties there. If a broker comes to us, we can refer them out there, because if you can't refer that customer to a later life expert or have that conversation, that customer will find someone that can. And then what you run the risk of is allowing that customer to leave the presence of your business to go talk to a competitor that you've not vetted, you're not on board with, and they will cross-sell into that customer. And all of a sudden you might lose that customer because you couldn't help their later life lending needs. Even though you've helped them get to that part of their life, a customer will go with whomever can help him or her support that side of it. So what do I think we need to do? We just need to educate more. And that comes down to packages, mortgage clubs, lenders. We need to put on more road shows for the later life lending aspect, not just discussions. I go to a lot where you see 3 or 4 people sit on a stage and just talk about the market. That's great. But I mean, like, real educational pieces, test cases. How have they helped the customer? Because that's where we get a lot of added value. When we go to our road shows and our round tables, we take a lot of testimonials. This is the customer that sits in your client bank that you might not be aware of, and this is how we've helped that individual get to this point. So I think the simple answer and the key word of the day is education. And that comes from the very top, which is your regulator, also the clubs, the packages, the lenders, putting on these educational pieces for brokers.
This is also about future-proofing our businesses and protecting ourselves for the future. We need to be able to demonstrate that we've looked at all of the options for the client. We're meant to be avoiding foreseeable harm. If you're only looking at a narrow sector of options available to a client, and you can't demonstrate that you've looked at broader options available to them, you're going to face challenges.
That's a very important point. Darren, just to round up, do you, obviously lenders play a crucial role in education. Is there resources and testimonials that Family has that brokers can look at, or, where are the best places to find resources?
There's a number of things. The first thing is, you've got a BDM. I encourage the BDM team and the individual BDM to meet brokers face to face. There's far more that you get out of a conversation when you're having a face-to-face conversation. You can get to know one another, and you can start having those conversations. You can start giving real-life case inquiries and be able to talk about situations that are not there in lending policy. Lending policy is what it is, but we deal a lot in the grey, in that we can move criteria where the needs sit. So I think just to encourage every broker advisor, open the door to your BDM. It's use them or lose them in the industry. And a good BDM is so valuable in being able to put a case together, particularly when we're talking about a market such as this, later life lending. It's not a market or not maybe a case that the advisor is dealing with on a daily, weekly or monthly basis. So they're going to need a bit of a steer. They need to come away from that high street lender where, let's say, the majority of the business is being placed, and all of a sudden they've got something a little bit different. I mentioned earlier how much we are invested in brokers and how much of our business is driven by brokers. But packages are crucial to that as well. They are our extra reach. They can reach additional firms. They can market our products and our criteria, and we work very, very closely together. So if you have an advisor that has at least the understanding of the market, they don't need to be a specialist within it, but at least then know where to go with it. And I think a lot of the problem is with some advisors is they'll say, well, if I've got to go to a packager, my customer will think I don't know what I'm doing. Well, I'll turn it on its head and say, no, you do know what you're doing. You can reach out to that packager who deals with us on a daily basis. And in many, many cases, they might have extra exclusive products that you can access. And if you do not ask that question and do not reach out, then you're probably doing your customer a disservice. So not only is it the education, I think it's just the ability for a broker to actually push themselves maybe into an area that they might be a little bit uncomfortable within, but to know that there are third-party specialists there. But second to that, yes, we will attend as many road shows and network events as we possibly can. We are a medium-sized building society. At the end of the day, we can't attend everything. We'd love to, but we will go to the areas that specifically target our target market. We send out case studies and information into a variety of networks. So we try and get as much reach as possible, but through the brokers there and the packagers, we like to use everybody and that they can spread our message.
I think that's a really nice note to end this session on. I think that what I've taken away is the importance of packages and the importance of kind of brokers, lenders and packagers working together. And if there is an area that you are not as confident in, try and find people who are more have more knowledge of that area and partner with them, and always ask BDM if for information, for case studies. So thank you to all of our speakers for that insight, and we'll see you in the next session.